Okay, this video is going to take us through accumulating and counting variables, and you'll need to write some notes down on this paper. We're going to use the Chapter 4A answer key, so you can use your handout on which you did last night's homework or the Chapter 4A homework, and find a place on your paper to write some things down. So we're going to cover two definitions. The first thing I did ask students, though, is what lines of this code include the loop control variable being initialized, tested, and updated. And so just to test yourself, do you know, if by looking at this code, do you know where the loop control variable is initialized, tested, and updated? And so hopefully that you saw it was here in line 9, line 15, and line 26 are the three places that the loop control variable is, and this shows how the loop control variable, or the variable count, actually does control the loop. Then we went into accumulating variables. So accumulating variable, and what you'll need to write down is the following: that an accumulating variable is a variable that keeps track of a running total. It's a variable that keeps track of a running total. So as you look at the code that we traced for our homework, then what variable in there would you say is the running total, that has the running total on it? And so you should be able to answer that question. And as you see, the total calories, you can see that you have a running total here that is, it starts at 0 and then increases to 1,000 and then 2250, and so it accumulates more and more calories each time through the loop. And so the accumulating variable then is total calories. All right, so that is the accumulating variable. We also discussed, how does Halloween relate to an accumulating variable? So hopefully if you thought about it, you would realize that the accumulating variable in Halloween is the sack that you use to store your candy. So as you go from house to house, you keep accumulating more. Well, where is that stored? It's stored in the sack or the pillowcase or whatever you're using to store your candy. It's accumulating more and more each house you go to. And so that's the accumulating variable. And this is very useful in writing programs. And as you see, we did use that in our to calculate the average calories per day. So it's very useful to have. The next thing is a counting variable. An accounting variable is a variable that keeps track of the number of occurrences of a particular event. It keeps track of the number of occurrences of a particular event. It increments by 1. And so as we look at this, well, what variables increment by 1? And as we can see, if we just look at our memory locations, we see that we have potentially a couple of them. So the count variable is counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's tracking the number. What's the event? It's the occurrences of what event? It's the event of the execution of a loop, an iteration of the loop. So this is, it's one iteration, it's two iterations, so it's keeping track of each time that the loop is executed. Then you look at days. Well, that's starting at 0, goes 1, 2, so it's incrementing by 1, and it's keeping track of the number of days that have occurred where you're counting calories and entering your calories. And so the accumulating variable then, or the counting variable then, would be days. Oops, that didn't work. Would be days. And it would also be the count variable. So those are two places, two counting variables. You have an accumulating variable, and then you notice that the use of them is that we use the accumulating variable divided it by the counting variable, which gave us the average calories per day. All right, so that is accumulating and counting variables.